So like I said, we would be concluding. We'll bring to conclusion our string and date handling queries, and we have quite a few things a bit to go through. And fortunately, I've been able to clear some of my junk files, so my laptop is a bit faster today. I'm not sure if anyone has what we did last week. So we stopped at setting the first day of the week, the day we want to. Yeah, so basically we were doing the dates, how to order our days and dates with respect to which day of the week we want to say is the first day, whether Monday or Sunday or Friday. We can choose any day at all that we want as our first day of the week. And we went through how to do that. All right. So also in the employee records that we were dealing with in the AdventureWorks database, in the employee record, assuming we are told, before we go to the question that I gave, I want to run through a few things before we tackle that question. But so one of the first things I want to talk about is assuming we are told to find find all the employees whose start date is in the future. How do we go about that? Anybody has an idea?
You can say with unknown or new start date.
Pardon?
New start date.
New start date. I can hardly hear you. Who spoke?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just said new because we don't know when, isn't it?
No,
So,
employees, so assuming you've attended an interview, right, today, and you are told you can start in 2 weeks' time, your name could still be in the system, and a query could be run to find employees who would start in the future. Right?
yes,
Is that not possible?
yes, that's possible.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Would it be get date plus whatever number of days in the future?
So it's just the future. We are not talking about any specific dates in the future.
Greater than get date.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all I want. Exactly. So show records for the deemed employee. Employee table. Don't mind my mixing of character. Where so this is another question actually. This is a question. So show records from the where start date or hire date is in the future. So that simply is what Juliet just said. So what you would do is select You want all employees whose start date is in the future. Obviously, from this database, before we even answer this question, let's just have a look at what we have in the database. Select all from deem employees. Deem employee. Let's just see if there will be any start date at all. But it's good to know because that situation can actually arise. So we have start dates. No, start date. This is 2026, 2006, 2007. I doubt there is no start date in the future, unfortunately, in this query, in this table. So unfortunately, this we wouldn't get a result if we run this query. But it's good to know what the query would look like. Right. So so this is where you remember the where clause? Where higher date. Higher date. Higher date is greater than get date. So today, get date is today's date, right? Get date. And if we run this, like I said, we shouldn't get any result at all for this because there is nothing in the database that is in the future. Everything there is in the past. So we get no result, but it's just good to know. Also, another thing that is good to know, assuming your manager should ask you, Mariam, can you please get us the list of employees that we employed this month? Again, there is nothing in this database that is this month, but it's also good to know how that query would look like. So show records from the deem employee table where start date is between the first day and the last day of the current month. So where the higher date is within this month. Where higher date is between the first day and last day of of the current month. How do we get that? That would be a date diff. That would be a date diff query that we would have to run. One moment, please. Where is my Zoom? Now, the first day of the month. How do we write the first day of the month? How do we write the first day of the month? The first day of the month. So if we know the first day of the month, and if we know how to write the first day of the month, and then we know how to write the last day of the month, then we can find the difference between the two. Isn't that the case? Yeah? So the first day of the month is always written as dates add the month dates diff again the month. We know that dates diff always has, it will take 3 arguments: the interval, start date, and end date. Interval, which is a month. The start date, we don't have a start date. First day of the month, 0. And then get date, today's date, as the first day of the month, assuming today is the first day of the month. So this gives us the first day of the month. We can write this as if we run this, let's
Sorry,
see.
can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I'm trying to bring up my system. Okay. So
You're trying to,
I'm trying to bring up my system, the SQL.
okay.
So it's not just showing like this. So just go one screen like that. So I'm trying to split it like this, but it's not being splitted. I've just
Okay, share your, let me stop sharing. Share your screen, let's see. Let's see. Is this the first time this is happening? Has it always been like this, Mariam? I believe this is the first time this happened. I think something's, I kind of, I've seen this before, but I've forgotten exactly how I
all
would.
I did was I think I clicked on there was this button here. It was here or something like this. Something like this drop down. So I clicked on float initially. So then it was floating. It was floating.
Okay, close it completely and relaunch.
Yeah, I've done that twice. It's not just yeah, it's not changing it.
So basically, so do you have the, can you type in at all?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you see it's split up. I think it's split up round the other way around. Click on the yeah, click on that. Let's see.
On this.
Click on that. So you can type here actually,
Yeah.
except that you wouldn't see your
Mm.
databases. But that is not ideal, is it? Let me see. Let me see. You see the okay, check the tick on the okay, you've done that already. Tick on the undo button. Let's see what happens.
Undo. Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right. So we want to find the first day of the month, okay? Now the first day of the month, if we take date diff, look, just look at from date diff to the end here. Month, we want it in month, so month 0 gets date. That is presumably get date is today's date. And our month, because it's this month, the interval is 0, right? But again, we do a date add and then come back with date with another interval. Date add would also take 3 intervals. Sorry, it will take 3 arguments: interval, increment, and then expression. Right, so this is the interval. The interval is the month. The increment is this bit here. We want to increase this by a month from whichever dates that we are at. And the expression is 0. This, I think it's kind of good if you have maybe a notepad somewhere that you keep some of these codes, because honestly, it's not every code that you would remember. So it would be good to have something somewhere, notepad somewhere that you can easily remember some of these codes. Now, so this gives us the first day of the month, right? How about the last day of the month? How do we get the last day of the month? That is where the main problem is. Because really and truly, we cannot have a single code to show the last day of the month. The reason being that some months are 30 days, some are 31, some are 28, and some can be 29. So we cannot have a single code to show the last day of the month. So, but what we can have is an expression that shows the first. So assuming this here is the first day of this month, if we have another expression that shows the first day of the next month, are you getting the argument? The first day of this month is this one. If we have another expression which shows the first day of the next month, then if we are to subtract the first day of the, if we are to subtract the first day of this month from the first day of the next month, we should get we should get the length between the first day and the last day of this month. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Let me know if it makes sense, please.
I think so. I think I need to see it work. Yeah.
So how do we code that? That is also a date add. Select date add. Again, we start with month. But we're going first day of the next month. And then dates add again. Dates add again, all of this. So that will be dates add. That is the interval expression. So what three arguments? What is the first one? Interval. Interval what and what? Interval something and expression. I've forgotten the second one now. It just escaped my mind. Right. So we have this one, which is the month. The interval is 1 month. And then the expression. All of this becomes the expression. So that is date add. Starting from the month, the previous month, date diff, month again, 0, get date, like that. So this gives us another. We close the brackets. We started with the brackets here to get all of this. So we close the brackets. Now, if we run this, you would see that it would be, this one gave us the first day of this month, 1st of March, 2024. Let's see if this will give us 1st of April. So this gives us 1st of April, 2024. So if we are to subtract the 1st of March, 2024 from the 1st of April, 2024, we would get the month of March. Is that correct? Right. So if we are to solve this problem, for example, show all records of employees who were hired within this month, all we would do is write a query imputing these two dates in a date diff query. So how do we do that? Let's see. Let's select all. Again, this will not give us any results because from the table, as we are aware, we do not have any employees starting this month. We don't have it in this table. We don't have it in my one. All the data we have are all historical data. So we don't have it. But these are queries that are good to know. So select all from dim employee, dim employee where hire date. Where hire date is between these two. Where hire date is greater than or equal to the first day of this month. And higher date is less than the first day of the next month. We can't put it as equal to. We can't put it as less than or equal to. Reason being that immediately we do that, we step into next month. Right? So this is the code to solve this problem. Question 2. This would be the code to solve question 2. Maybe in time we can insert into a database information that would enable us to see how this query really works. So like I said, if we execute this, we wouldn't get any result. Right. Another thing too that we can be asked is employees service. I think we did that the last time. I'm not sure. In say days, in days, months, years, seconds, minutes, we can do all of that. We can do all of that. So let's see how we can, I believe I'm not sure if we did this the last time. So if we want, what query would we use in doing that? If we want to find the employees length of service, I think we did length of service, didn't we? Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Hello.
I'm there.
So we want to find the employee service in say days, right? What do we select? We want the higher dates, isn't it? Okay, so this is not going to, it's always best to have the from the table. That way the IntelliSense tells you, it gives you options. So select higher date. This is what I'm looking for. So if we just select higher date from employee, just the higher date, this is what we get, right? This is what we get. Now we want to put this in days, in years, in months, whatever we want, whatever it is that we want. We did this last time, I'm sure about that. We use the date diff, right? Date diff. We want it in days. So that's a start day. We want it interval. That's interval. Start day is the higher day. Higher date. and the end date. So we want to run this and see what we have. Let's see. Let me do it this way. As days of service. In days. End of service in days. So this is what we have. We can repeat this and then we get it in months. Weeks. Weeks. Month. Months. And as a matter of fact, we can select more than that to make it look even better. First name. Is it first name or forename? Okay, first name. Last name. Employee ID, employee something, right? What's the employee key? Yeah, we can do that. And see how that comes out. So now we have this. So we can have each employee's, we know who these figures actually belong to. That's why I just added these. Not that they are important. I mean, this is something that you already know how to do. So I just added it to make it look a little bit more personalized. We know who exactly we are referring to when we talk about length of service. Right. There is another thing that I want us to look at. If we want to find the employee's length of service in years, for example, you see that in this particular case, is this very, very correct? Is this very, very, let's take the first role, just the first role as an example, right? This employee was hired on the 28th of January 2006. So realistically, how long has this employee been in employment? It is not just, it is not just 18 years, is it? Because we are in March now. And believe you me, if we were to run this query in June, July, August, it will still give us 18 because it is just taking the years. What about the extra months? So this one here, 2006, January 2006, and we are in March 2024. Whilst that is 18 years, there are some months spillover, right? At least 2 months in this particular instance. Or almost 2 months. Almost 2 months. So, how do we get around this? To find the employee's length of service in exact years. It doesn't matter if we are looking for it in days. Days will be correct. Weeks would be very, very close. In fact, weeks would also be very close, except there might be a slight variations due to the number of days that might be lost when counting. Same for months. By years, it becomes very significant. Exact length of service in years. So first of all, is to find the length of service in days and then divide by 365 1/4. So we take this query here. Find the length of service in days. In days and divide. 365.25. So 365 1/4. And how do we get that? So select. What we are looking for is the hire date. Select hire date from dim employee, where this one now divided by 365.25. Now let's see what that would give us.
Still in the meeting?
Yeah, I'm in a meeting.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna wait outside.
Okay. So you see what that has given us. But do we really, really, really want that? This is the employee's length of service in exact years. So 18.127 and so on, number of years. Assuming the length of service is there is some financial attraction that goes with how long you've served. Nobody would want to lose these figures behind the decimal point. I am sure of that. Nobody will want to lose it. Everybody will want to have it counted. But in presentation terms, it doesn't present well. So we can, when we've done this to get the exact figures, we can revert to the previous state. But we do that with a query that recognizes that this is there, but we have just chosen to do it, to go back to this form. If you get what I mean. No, this one. So now we've converted this to years, right? We found it in days and then we divided by that. That brings it to years. Okay, to get the exact length of service. Now, what I'm saying is that whilst this is the true representation, for visual representation, this might not look well. So what we need to do is to use another query which removes these decimal points, but implicitly recognizes that they are there. If that makes sense. Right, so let's see. I'll copy all of this again. Exact years. I'm going to copy this again. How many of you have heard of the word floor and seal? Has anybody heard of floor? Let me have some reaction, please. The place is too quiet for my liking.
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Right. So that's what we use. So this is in exact, this one here, the first one is in exact years. Now, when we use the word floor, what we are saying is that there must always be, when you put an opening bracket, you must always close the bracket. So this will be service years in exact not just exact years, but exact full years. And let's see what that gives us. So this here, the floor here has stripped this off the decimal points, right? So what I said earlier on was that you use a query which implicitly recognizes the existence of these decimal points, but visually, you don't see them, right? But intrinsically, it is the decimal points are still there, but you just don't see them, right? Which speaks well for presentation. In much the same way, we can use another word. So this one here strips it off, just leaving the whole numbers. Service in top years, exact. Let me call this top years. What will the seal do? There's something wrong here. Something is wrong with seal. What have I done? Okay, I get it. Let's see what happens to this one. So this here takes, the seal takes the number. If there ever is a decimal point, no matter how small, it just converts it to 1 and adds onto the whole number. So this one is 18.12. So it converts, because there's a number after the decimal point, it converts it to 1 and adds on to 18 to get 19. And same for all. Whilst this floor strips the whole number of whatever decimal points that there are. Are we getting somewhere? Okay. And now I think, should we do the question I gave the last time? I think there's something first. Let me do this one first. Let me see my notes. Let me see my notes. Display the length of service in years and months. Okay, so that's what we've just done. Right, so instead of just leaving this as numbers and figures, you can actually do something like this. You can put something like this there and then have all of these displayed. If I were to put this here, it's going to give us the same thing, except that I've introduced new information. That's all. Right. Two more things that we need to do. And then we can go and look at the question that we had last week. So this information here is ordered by the employee key. And I think is it ordered by the hire date? I'm not so sure. Let's see. I think it's ordered by the hire date also. But we can, we can order by we can change the order. Let's see. We can change the order of this. Let me see what happens. What would happen if we put order by? Remember the order by clause. It was one of the first things we introduced. And I did mention then that in time, we would be introducing these clauses. Remember, we said that the two important clauses are the select and the from. So you see that we have used where, you've used select, we've used from, we've used where. Now this is order by. If we say order by hire date, I don't think this is going to make any significant change, but because it is already ordered by the hire date. It is already ordered by the hire date. However, and the order is usually in hire date, in ascending order of dates. In ascending order of dates. So, but we can revert this, we can make it descending. So the default position is ascending, right? The default position is ascending. Let me see if I can put both together as, okay, no, I don't think so. This is the default position. Nothing is going to change with this. But if we were to use descending, then you will notice a change. It swaps around. Right? Notice a change. So what has happened here is that this is the earliest hire date in the, or no, this is the latest hire date in the database. So this was the last person to be hired. Right? And the first person to be hired is the one we did before. This is the first person to be hired. Is that okay? Right, so now let's go to our question. The question was for us to find the longest serving employee in the organization. The longest serving employee in the organization. Has anybody got MySQL? Is anybody using MySQL? Or are we all using SQL Server Studio? Hello, class.
I think most of us will be
Should I
using
call
Studio.
names? How many are we on the chat on the call? Are
Hello,
we still 5?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I was saying that most of us are probably using the Studio because that's what we were given by Mr. Ebenezer.
Okay, okay, that's fine, no problem.
Have it before.
Yeah, no problem. There is one word that looks like it's been what is it? It's been deprecated by MySQL, by the SQL Server Studio. So when I say deprecated, I mean it's been stopped. Its use has been stopped. So I tried it and it didn't work. But I know it works. It used to work and it's worked before, and I think it works in MySQL, which is why I asked the question. So for example, if I were to write this, select all from dim employee, dim employee, and I say order by hire date. Juliet, you tried something the last time, which was great. It was good, but that doesn't give you, that is not definite. It doesn't really solve the problem.
Yeah, it was kind of a go around way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we say this, you already know that, for example, this one we've already said is the longest serving employee, right? Order by hire dates. And if it is ascending, hire date ascending, doesn't matter at all. The hire date is ascending. That means that we are starting from the farthest date. So date terms, the dates you need, when you're dealing with date, you need to, and you are talking about it in terms of ascending and descending. You need to flip it in your mind relative to numbers. When we say numbers are ascending, we are starting from the smallest, right? And then going to large ones. But when we say date is ascending, you would think it is the date that was further off, that would be big, right? But that is actually a smaller date. So for example, this is a smaller date than that. In fact, even if you look at it numerically, strip off all the dashes, this is a smaller number than, for example, that, right? So if you run this, for example, you should get this is not going to change anything. Nothing is going to change. Though it's going to strip off, all these will go away because we are running a fresh query, right? So we have this, and we have we have said that the hire date should be in ascending order. So is that was the first date that we had for the longest serving employee, and the guy's name is Guy Gilbert. Same as if we run this query, we will get the same thing. We'll get that back. Guy Gilbert is the same person, right? Okay. But if we were to, for example, in this particular case, use the word, which is a key word, limits. Remember when we started, we said if you want to run a query on a database you have not used before, it is always best to approach it cautiously and not run the full, and not select the full data, but you just select a few rows just to gauge what you have in the data. And we use the keyword top. You remember that? Now, there is another keyword, limit, that we could use, but that is what I'm saying looks like it's been deprecated by MySQL, by the SQL server. So you see that even here, it's giving me an error, but this ordinarily should have worked. This ordinarily should have worked. So if this was to work, then when we run this query, limits 1, it limits it to the very first row. So I'm sure this still works in my SQL, which is why I asked that question, right? But I think I'm aware that SQL Server Management Studio has deprecated this, but there is a way we can go around that. So let me just get rid of this. We don't need this. Let me comment it out. We don't need it. What are we going to do? Now we're going to do what is called a query within a query. Now that introduces us to a completely different concept called subqueries. Now subqueries are something that's going into advance of SQL actually. So I don't intend, it would not be something for this class. We don't have the time for it. But because I asked the question, I would just use a simple example of it to solve that question. So we do what is called a subquery. Now, we are looking for the employee who is the longest serving employee. So we can run a query to find all employees within the business. And then we can also run a query to find the employee with the smallest hire date. Mind you, we said this is the smallest hire date. The smallest hire date is the date for the employee with the longest service. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So we run two queries. One, a query that finds all the employees in the business. And two, a query that finds the employee with the smallest hire date. Now we use the query that finds the employee with the smallest hire date as input for the the query that finds all the employees in the business. That is why it's called a query within a query or subqueries. Right, how do we do that? So I said first run a query. Actually, it is the second query that comes first, but the last query is written first. So select, let's say employee. Let me just copy some of these things. Is there anything here I can copy? No. Okay, so let's say I copy employee key. It's always good to put the from, the select and the from tables queries before you input other things. That way, it's the IntelliSense prompts. It gives you prompts which you can select from. So select employee key. What other things do we need? We want their names, right? We want the name. We want the people. So we want the first name. We want the first name. See, it's giving me prompts now. Then we want the last name. And we also want the hire date. We want the hire date. And we need to do a date diff. To get the length of service. Because to remind you, in these cases, we did date diff to get the length of service, right? So we need to do a date diff to get the length of service. Date diff. What interval are we looking for? If the interval is years, we say we want the length of service. Maybe we want it in years. What is the start date? The start date is the hire date. And what is the end date? The end date is today. Right. This is the main query. This ordinarily will just return all the employees, as we already know. This will return all the employees. So this actually doesn't give us a solution to the question. We just want the one result. We just want that one. So we are now going to write another query. Where hire date is equal to, we now write the second query. And we said we are looking for the query or the minimum hire date. The minimum hire date is the date that is farthest. We use the word min to represent minimum. So you see that it gives you minimum expression. And we want the hire date, right? Where do we want that from? When you use select, you must have a from. It has to come from somewhere. So where is that going to come from? It is coming from the dim employee table. Are we getting this? Right. So if we were to just run this query, just this query here, something is wrong. Oh, yes, I know what's wrong. Who can tell us what is wrong? Can anyone tell us? Can anyone guess what is wrong? Can anyone make a guess? Something is wrong. If we run this query, it's not going to run. But it is just something very, very, very small. Something very minute is wrong, but it's not going to work. And the sign is here. You can see the sign. Something is wrong. Okay, let me help you. We open a bracket, we need to close the bracket. Open bracket, close bracket. If we run just this query here, what does it give us? It gives us this date. Mind you, this is the minimum hire date that we have always talked about. And if we run this query, what do we get? We get all of this information. So what we are essentially saying is that this query here should take that here as an input. So this is a subquery to that. Now, if we then run the whole thing, what result will that give us? That gives us just the singular result. Are we okay with this? Any question? Any question? Juliet, is it okay? If Juliet doesn't answer, it means everybody's asleep.
Yeah, we're here. It's okay.
Hello, who is talking?
This is Miriam.
Mariam,
Yeah.
is it okay? Do you get it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Who else is on the call?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear.
Is that
It's Albert.
oh, okay, Albert. Right. Should we continue or should we stop? I would have actually loved to finish this today. But we have like 30 more minutes to go. Should we continue or should we stop?
Yeah, if it's 30 minutes, that's okay.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Right. So that is our question answered for last week. Now we're going to look at another concept. Remember when we started last week, I said I was going to talk about a number of things. I said I'll talk about what are the things I mentioned? I've forgotten. But I remember I didn't talk about some of them. I didn't talk about cast. I didn't talk about convert. And I didn't talk about concatenation. So now I want to talk about concatenation. And who knows what concatenation is? Can anyone help us? Concatenation. Have you heard it before?
Yeah.
Albert, you've heard of concatenation before, right?
Yes, for a bit.
So what can you tell us what it is briefly?
I think that's more like combining two more strings into a single string, if I'm right.
Okay. So when you put two strings together as a single string. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very correct. That's very, very correct. That's very, very, very correct. So if we have something like this, if we have, let's assume we have select all from dim employee. This gives us, let's look at the names, first name, last name, middle name. we can put these together. We can put this together. First name, last name. And then we can also do this. We want to find the full name instead of just having first name and last name. We don't want that. We want to find the full name, right? How do we do that? We put the full first name. We put the first name and this, so plus, but can we really and truly add one name to another name just like by the plus sign, by this operator? No, we can't do that. But that is what happens when we concatenate. Now we want if we do this, if we run this now, you'll see that there will be another column created if we just have this. Oh no, let me take this off. I just want that. Right, so we have concatenated, we have put these two together to get the full name, right? Let's see how this works when we put different data types. Non-similar data types. So for example, if I were to say, select last name. Select last name plus, I'm not sure you know what this is for. Why am I putting these quotation marks? Who knows? Who knows why I'm putting the quotation marks? What is it for?
Is that not the concatenation operator?
No.
Does that mean you should
Pardon?
write it as a string?
That's what?
Does that mean you should write what you selected as a string?
No.
No. Okay.
If it was to do that, then it would have been around the it would have been around the string itself.
Or is that to put space between them?
Exactly, to put space between. So if I hadn't put this here, these words would have just been together. Let's take it out. Do you see that? It would have been just together. But that brings space into, it puts space in there. So that is what it is for. And also, so if instead of another name, I use a different data type. So this is a name type. This is a date type. So this is a string, that's a date. Let's see let's see if it can happen. Let us just see if it can happen. And if it cannot happen, what do we do to make it happen? That is the most important thing. Can that happen? It can't happen. Right, that cannot happen. But what do we then do to make it happen? That is when we use the word cast. Cast. So we are now going to cast this. Now, what cast is for is simply to change one data type to another. So we can change this data type here from a date type to string, right? We can change it to string.
Sorry, Godwin, I just wanted to check. When is this class meant to end? Is it 11 or half 11?
We started at 9:30, so technically 11, actually, 11.
Right.
If you're tired, let me know. I'll just stop.
No. It just because I've got another meeting at half 11. That's why.
Wow, you have a meeting at half 11. Okay, don't worry. We would end in the next 20 minutes.
Okay,
or less.
thank you.
Or less. Right. So what we need to do is to cast this here, data type, as a string. And how do we do that? Let me just copy everything again. So we need to use the word cast. We cast this as a string. Because we are casting it as a string, we need to give it, don't worry about this that I'm going to do. We haven't done data types yet. That I am hoping will be our next lesson. So we have cast this as a string of variable character length. This is 20 here is an arbitrary character. I can give it any figure. It doesn't matter at all. Right, so long as it would accommodate the length of the date. So this 20 here is just to say is just a space that is created for the date, for the characters within the date to sit in. If you get what I mean. So for example, 15th of March, 15th dash March 03 dash 15 dash 03 dash 2020 is 2024, right? We are in 2024, right? Yeah, so that's like 10 characters. 10 characters altogether. But we give it, we have to give it some allowance, some room, in case there are other characters that can come along, like maybe seconds, minutes, etc. So I can even make this 30, I can make it 50, and it wouldn't matter at all. Right? It wouldn't matter at all.
I have
So
a question,
this,
Pedro.
yes, go ahead.
So this cast function, does it only convert to string, or does it work vice versa as well? Like if you want...
just hold on. We
Okay.
will do another one.
All right.
We will do another one, and that should answer your question. Right, so this one here. Let's see what happens. So it takes the last name and casts it, adds it, concatenates it. See, what we are doing here is concatenation, right? Under the concatenation, we are saying that add this and that. But this one didn't work because they were different data types. It didn't work here. But now that we've changed the data type of date from data to string using the keyword cast, it has worked. Okay, it's worked. But again, we can, if we like, put all of this in bracket. I think so. I think we can, I think that should work. Let me try it. Let me just do this and see whether that should work. Let me see if this would work. What I want to do is to put this in brackets, put the date in brackets to separate it a little bit from the it should work. Anyway, I'll look into that. I think I've done that before. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's go on. Let's go. Let that not draw us back. Let's go on. Let's look at another example. Let me take this out. Otherwise, it will be just repetition. Now, let's forget about a database. and just select something out of the ordinary. Select 1 plus 2. Will this work? It will not work because they are different data types, right? So if I were to write this, do we agree that this 2 here is the same as that 2? Do we agree that they are the same things?
Yeah. But why is the
because this is a
number,
string, that is a
yeah,
string. So
why
they are
is
the same
that,
data type.
why is the first one not in quotation?
Okay, let me put it in quotation and see.
I'm just wondering why.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it actually. So this and that are the same things, right? It would not have worked anyway. It wouldn't have worked because they are different data types. Right? It would not have worked. Now, this on the other hand, for some reason, would work. But then, the results, logically, what do you think the result would be? It's 3, but what kind of 3 is it? Because this is a string, that is also a string. It is not an integer. Right. Now, this here worked because the system implicitly recognized that we want to write it 2. It's doing simple addition. So this is called implicit conversion. The system itself converted it. Implicit conversion.
So this outcome, is it an integer or
this
string?
outcome would be a string. If we want the outcome to be an integer, we need to do an explicit conversion. So we need to intentionally change this to an integer. And again, we use the word cast. We are asking the system to change it to an integer. And this is called an explicit conversion. We are intentionally telling it to do as we want it to do. So you can understand why it is not good to leave it to chance. This is just leaving it to chance. It may work sometimes, it may not work, depending on how the system recognizes the inputs. But this is certainty. Right. The downside to casts is that it doesn't give us control over how certain forms of data are formatted. It doesn't give us control over how certain forms of data are formatted. So we use the other word convert for other data types, especially data types. Convert or format. Right, so we're going to look at that in this particular case now. This is another very interesting concept. Juliet asked me about this the last time as to how you asked me something, you asked a question about date. Whether we can change the way the date looks. Do you remember?
Was that this in this?
And I said we would come to it.
Yeah, I was asking if we can use the cast to change the data either way, or does it only change to
No,
string?
no, I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about last week.
Oh, yeah.
So dates can be the way that your date is formatted, and this is the last bit. The way date is formatted, or the way the date would appear, has got 14 or 15 different ways. And each of them is controlled by the numbers ranging from 100 to 114. The range of numbers that control the date formats, 100 to 114. So what we have here is, let me just quickly do that. We have just very little time left, so let me just rush over that. When we do one, the first one that we do we just replicate it and then we get the other ones. Again, we use a variable character. Length, let's set the length again to 20. Yep.
Good night, yes.
Yeah, good night. Okay, cool. Now, this ordinarily gives us, get date is today's date, right? So this is going to give us today's date. Today's date. And see how, look at the representation of today's date. Take note of it. Month, day, year, time in hours, in minutes, with a PM. So this is month, day, year, time in hours, then in minutes, with a PM. This is the default date position. And this date format is also represented by, or is also the same date format that we can get, that we would get if we use the first number. And the first number being what? 100. We would get the same date format. Look at it carefully. If I run this, it will be the exact same thing. It will be the exact same thing. The time has changed by a few minutes, right? So let me just copy this and then let's see. I said from 100 to 114. So let's quickly replicate all of this and see. One hundred. 101. 102. 103. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. And if we run all of these, sorry, we will get different dates formatted. We'll get the dates in different formats. So you can use this here to set the format that you want. Like I said earlier on, this is the default position. This here is the American format. The month comes first, the day, and then the year. That's the American format, isn't it? Let me just choose the common ones. This here is the common format. 103, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the common format, 15th of March, 2024. This here is the common format, isn't it? This here gives us time only. Whilst the last one gives a greater degree of time. Time only, but greater degree of time. Is it time only? Let me have a look. Yep, time only, but greater degree of time. Okay, so that brings us to an end of, oh dear. How many minutes? One more thing. That's also going to go very fast. So that's the use of convert, right? We use convert. We can also use format. can also use format to get the dates. Format is more certain. You know exactly. So for example, with these ones, if you don't know what figure to use, you might get confused. You wouldn't be able to know how you want your dates to be represented. But with formats, you dictate how you want it to be. So you select format. Get date. Comma. And how do you want it to appear? You may want it to come as year, year, year. You set the tone in this particular instance. Capital M represents month. Small m represents minutes. We use that somewhere. Small m represents minutes. Capital M represents month. And then day. Right, so we can again just copy this. There are just 4 instances of this, so that's fine. What is this? Oh gosh, what have I done? Open bracket, close. Okay, so that's it. Right, so then you can change how you want your days, your dates to appear. You might want it to appear this way. You might want to switch the year round. Month, day, and year. And you might want to go longer. You might want to show the hours, to show the minutes, to show the seconds, and to show milliseconds. Okay, so whichever format you choose, you can have. So these are the 4 instances that you get. Yep. Right, so that brings us to an end of today's lessons. Thank you very, very much and really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Godwin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll send the notes, so Juliet would send the recording.